Hello and welcome to Pale Blue Thoughts. We are continuing our discussions on science-based medicine versus woo-woo medicines. Many people follow alternate medicines due to three reasons. 1. People believe it works. 2. They claim to have no side effects. 3. The government supports it. I will go into the three aspects, but before that, the one thing that most people lack is an understanding of how the woo-woos work. That is, the knowledge about the basic underlying principles of these complementary and alternate medicines. If you get a good idea about the underlying principles, it is easy for someone to see why their claims are unscientific and unjustified. So my attempt here would be to describe the underlying principles of these healing systems. We will start with the king of all scams, homeopathy. You may have thousands of people who claim to have been cured by homeopathy. Most of the people who swear by this system of healing do not have an understanding of its underlying principles. People who believe in homeopathy are requested to watch the entire series or at least till the end of the video before commenting. Let me explain and then you can decide. It has two basic principles, the law of similars and the law of infinitesimals. Remove these two and there will be no homeopathy. Today we will see the first principle, like cures like, or law of similia, or similia similibus curenta. Welcome to the first part of delusions about dilutions. Homeopathy was invented by a man named Samuel Hahnemann in 1796, all by himself. Yes, all by himself. Even today, he is called as the master by the homeopaths. No wonder there is a cult following in many people. The master. Woo-ha-ha-ha-ha. So how did the master invent this healing system? Hahnemann was a German physician in the days when physicians employed primitive practices such as bloodletting and purgatives. Frustrated with such techniques, Hahnemann wanted to find an alternate solution, and by chance he conceived the theory of homeopathy while translating a medical treatise by the Scottish physician and chemist William Cullen into German. In those days, the cure for malaria was a tree bark from a tree called cinchona. Being skeptical of Cullen's theory that cinchona cured malaria because it was bitter, Hahnemann ingested some bark specifically to investigate what would happen. He experienced fever, shivering and joint pain, symptoms similar to those of malaria itself. From this, Hahnemann jumped to the conclusion that all effective drugs produce symptoms in healthy individuals similar to those of the diseases that they treat. This led to the name homeopathy, which comes from the Greek words homoios, which means like, and pathos, meaning suffering. Hahnemann also termed a system that was prevailing as allopathy, which translates to other suffering, and this we have already discussed earlier. The followers of this healing system are called homeopaths, and they believe that a substance that can cause symptoms of a disease in healthy people can cure similar symptoms in sick people. This doctrine is called similia similibus curenta in Latin, or like cures like. I am sure you haven't understood the principle completely. Let me phrase it again. A substance that causes symptoms of a disease in healthy people can cure similar symptoms in sick people. Still confused? Let me explain it using a simple analogy. Suppose I am a normal healthy person. One day I ate some stale expired food, let's say a biryani from a roadside stall, and it caused me to have a stomach upset and vomiting. Now the cause of me getting sick was the stale biryani, and I developed the symptoms of diarrhea. As per the theory of homeopathy, this stale biryani can now be given as a medicine for someone else having stomach upset due to any reason. Sounds scientific? Believable? But oh yes, This is the first principle of homeopathy. If something causes a particular symptom in a healthy person, the same substance can be used as a medicine on another person displaying the same symptoms. Simply put, what causes a disease can also be its cure. Coronavirus causes COVID-19, so COVID-19 can be cured by coronavirus. Duh! When Hahnemann ate the bark of cinchona, he developed symptoms of malaria, and cinchona was used to treat malaria. So he put 2 and 2 together and got 37 and concluded that like cures like. An account of the effects of eating cinchona bark noted by an American physician named Oliver Wendell Holmes in his set of 2 lectures titled Homeopathy and Its Kinder Delusions was not able to reproduce the symptoms that Hahnemann reported. Later scientific work showed that cinchona cures malaria because it contains quinine, which kills the parasite that causes the disease. But the mechanism of action is unrelated to Hahnemann's ideas. It is widely understood that what Hahnemann experienced were effects of cinchona poisoning, but the poor chap mistook it as malaria. Overjoyed by his newfound discovery, Hahnemann began to test what effects various substances may produce in humans, a procedure later called as homeopathic probing. These tests required subjects to test the effects of eating various substances by recording all of their symptoms as well as the additional conditions under which they appeared. He published a collection of probings in 1805, and a second collection of 65 preparations appeared in his book Materia Medica Pura. He gathered and published an overview of his new medical system in his book The Organon of the Healing Art, published in 1810, with its 6th edition published posthumously in 1921, and this is still used by homeopaths today as their medical Bible. In the Organon, Hahnemann introduced the concept of miasms as the infectious principles underlying chronic disease and as peculiar morbid derangements of a vital force. His assertion was that if these symptoms were suppressed by medication, the cause went deeper and began to manifest itself as diseases of the internal organs. Homeopathy maintains that treating diseases by directly alleviating their symptoms, as is sometimes done in conventional medicine, is ineffective, as the underlying imputed miasm still remains and deep-seated ailments can be corrected only by removing the deeper disturbance of the vital force. In normal words, this means that all diseases manifest as miasms due to an imbalance of a vital force which is present within each one of us. Hahnemann's miasms originally presented only 3 local symptoms: sora, the itch; syphilis, which is venereal or sexually transmitted disease; or psychosis, which is a wart disease. Of these, the most important was sora, the itch-related diseases of the skin, and was claimed to be the foundation of many further disease conditions. Hahnemann believed it to be the cause of such diseases as epilepsy, cancer, jaundice, deafness, and cataracts. So if you have cancer, for instance, or you lose your sense of hearing, first you would probably itch somewhere. Amazing. Are you itching to listen further? This vitalism principle has been debunked in its entirety in the 19th century. Vitalists believe that living organisms are fundamentally different from non-living beings because they contain some vital spark or energy which some equate to the soul. Vitalists believe that organic materials cannot be synthesized from inorganic components. This was shown to be incorrect by Friedrich Wöhler when he synthesized urea, which is an organic compound from inorganic substances. You would think vitalism died a sudden death because of the experiment. No, it still manifests in different forms, especially in the words of Sadhgurus and other spiritual leaders even today. For homeopaths, it is still the driving force or driving energy behind their medical system. This system of healing proposed by Hahnemann gained prominence in the 19th century mainly because the allopathic treatments during that time were highly dangerous. People more often died due to the allopathic treatments such as bloodletting and purgatives than recover. During 19th century, epidemics such as cholera were rampant and the death rates in homeopathic hospitals were often lower than in conventional hospitals, where the treatments used at the time were often harmful and did little or nothing to combat the diseases. In such a scenario, Hahnemann's no medicine became popular and began to spread across the world and reached other parts of Europe and the Americas. Homeopathy was first brought to India almost 200 years ago by German missionaries who distributed remedies in Bengal. But it was not until 1839 when John Honigberger, a Romanian homeopath and disciple of Samuel Hahnemann, successfully treated the then ruler of Punjab, Maharaja Ranjit Singh in Lahore, that homeopathy gained the royal patronage that enabled it to take roots in India. But around the same time, there was another branch that was developing steadily on the other side: science. I already discussed how the Flexner report in the USA resulted in people paying more attention to science-based medicine, and very soon all homeopathic schools shut down in USA by the 1920s. Homeopathy never could take root in the United States after that, but it remained very much established in European thinking. The Nazi regime in Germany was fond of homeopathy and spent large sums of money on researching its mechanisms, but without gaining a positive result. Of course, the fascist regime there had to embrace the German roots and heritage in order to promote their cause, much like many other countries have done in recent times. Since the beginning of the 21st century, a series of meta-analyses have further shown that the therapeutic claims of homeopathy lack scientific justification. But homeopathy continued to survive in some countries, mainly in India. Homeopaths claim that they can determine the properties of their preparations by following a method which they call proving. As performed by Hahnemann, proving involved administering various preparations to healthy volunteers. The volunteers were then observed, often for months at a time. They were made to keep extensive journals detailing all of their symptoms at specific times throughout the day. They were forbidden from consuming coffee, tea, spices or wine for the duration of the experiment. Playing chess was also prohibited because Hahnemann considered it to be too exciting, though they were allowed to drink beer and encouraged to exercise in moderation. So what is proving? Suppose the volunteers were given milk as part of their proving. The volunteers then had to record everything that happened after they drank the milk. They sneezed 3 times in a week. Someone forgot to carry their books to class. Someone's left ear twitched for 30 seconds. Someone dreamt of ice cream. A few had an argument with their wife. So on and so forth, and everything had to be meticulously recorded. Now these symptoms were carefully listed down against the milk proving. Now if someone came with similar symptoms later, the homeopath will look at the symptoms and prescribe milk as the medicine. So if I had an argument with my wife and I sneezed after that and my left ear twitched and I dreamt of ice cream soon after that, I was to take milk as the medicine. How simple and effective method of treatment. Outside of the alternative medicine community, scientists have long considered homeopathy a sham or a pseudoscience, and the medical community regards it as quackery. No homeopathic preparation has been shown to be different from placebo. Proponents argue that homeopathic medicines must work by some yet undefined, undetected by science, biophysical mechanism. Yeah, right, that is what I would call magic. Science has found what causes universe and the elements that were formed 3.8 billion years ago have subdivided particles right until Higgs boson, and is now using robots to conduct surgeries, but is unable to find out why sugar pills in water is able to cure diseases? Ooh la la. Now a couple of parting thoughts. Hahnemann was absolutely right to criticize the medical system at that time, and none today would blame him for trying to remedy the situation. I will give him 100 out of 100 for trying to do that, and I really appreciate him for that humanitarian gesture of his. And I don't blame him for believing the system that he developed, because at that time we only knew so much. His eagerness to do good to the society should not be seen in a bad light at all. But at the same time, it should be criticized today when science has developed so much that we can now see what is scientific and what is a pseudoscience, and in the light of that, the first principle of like cures like fails to be scientific. The second point is for people who are itching to put a derogatory statement or comment supporting homeopathy. I have a request. Please listen to the entire series before commenting. Also, please understand that anecdotal evidences or stories from personal experience like "I tried it and it worked for me" are not considered as proper evidences in the eyes of science. So let's just avoid that, shall we? If you have proper counter theories to prove that like cures like, I would like to hear that. So today we discussed only the first principle of homeopathy, which is like cures like and provings, and we have seen how silly the principle really is. But the best is yet to come. In the next episode, we will get into the principle of infinitesimals, or the potentization or the dilution principle. This will literally shake you and dilute your thought processes. That is by far the most hilarious of principles that I have ever heard in my life. When I first heard about the principles of homeopathy, I was under the impression that it was an alternate system that could work, say like a different brand of medicine perhaps. But the moment I heard the second principle, I almost beat myself with a sledgehammer for being this silly to believe that a system which was based on such a principle could even work. Such is the second theory. So don't forget to tune in to the second part. I need to go for today. My medicinal biryani is getting cold. So until next time, it's bye-bye from Pale Blue Thoughts.